Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from your respective positions, wherever you are around the world. It's the end, it's over, between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. America says it is very disappointed with Russia. Trump is disappointed. Trump's special envoy, who was flattering Russia, etc., has himself just changed his stance. He says that the Americans are extremely disappointed with Vladimir Putin. And there will be no more talk of peace, of negotiation for peace. In any case, referring to what he said, to what the Americans have observed, maybe, I do say maybe, there will be no more negotiation for peace, since they have seen that Putin is adamant. Putin pretended to play the United States game to allow Russia to buy time. But Putin is adamant, and that's what hurts them very, very much. When we delve deeper, you will see that the Americans have made great efforts. But those efforts, Russia brushed aside with a wave of the hand. What is happening concretely? Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we are going to discuss in this video conference, which I ask you to share as much as possible. Please subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. Please subscribe and activate the notification bell. So, it's clear. America says that Vladimir Putin has not budged an inch, not one iota. Putin did not give in. The peace negotiations on Ukraine are at a standstill. We don't know what it will lead to. But Putin has remained adamant. He has conceded nothing. When I say nothing, I mean nothing. This is what discourages America. The Americans could not have imagined that Vladimir Putin could be so stubborn, so set in his ways. So, on this 2nd of May, 2025, the information is provided by the Western media outlet Bloomberg. It is Bloomberg that reports the very detrimental feelings America has just experienced regarding Vladimir Putin's attitude. Let's delve deeper. I want a lot of sharing. The peace negotiations between the United States and the Kremlin result in nothing, end in a deadlock, according to Bloomberg. Washington, through Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's special envoy to Ukraine and Russia. America has tried. Washington has unsuccessfully attempted to persuade Moscow to stop the war on the front lines. But Putin once again insisted firmly. Putin insisted. He said, we can stop. But the 4 Ukrainian regions will remain forever under Russia's control. 4 Ukrainian regions. Putin says that these regions will remain forever under Russia's control. You see, I have told you here very often, that's why Putin is organizing, for there to be a legitimate government. When there is a legitimate government, the paper that will be signed will be for all eternity. That is Putin's philosophy. This is the point on which Putin does not yield. But Ukraine has also developed an article in its constitution. It even goes beyond the constitution, which prohibits Ukraine from recognizing any part of its territory as belonging to another state. Here is the major point of contention. Let's go. This is the 4th official AIMBO meeting of Vladimir Putin with Steve Witkoff. It's Witkoff, yes. Donald Trump's special envoy. They have been on this since February. The gentleman goes, comes back, goes, comes back, goes, comes back. So far, without result. No result. That means everything he was saying in the media was just a smokescreen to distract people. to make them believe things were starting to improve. However, nothing was improving. Everything eventually comes to light. Putin is not in a hurry. So, according to Steve Witkoff, who himself told Trump, he says that Putin just doesn't seem to want to end the conflict. He himself said this to Donald Trump. He said this to Donald Trump later. So the Trump administration is also disappointed by the 3-day ceasefire declared by Moscow. You know that Russia planned a ceasefire for the 8th, 9th, or 10th of May. The Trump administration says it is disappointed. For them, it should be a permanent ceasefire. That is to say, Putin has been very clever. Instead of waiting for their permanent ceasefire, he establishes his own 3-day ceasefire to show his goodwill. However, deep down, it is not in their ideology. I had seen many people here saying, no, Putin must be wary, he must be clever. The Americans are like this, are like that. Now here is the result. Putin played with their minds. Maranatha. He has really played with their minds. They are very disappointed. The White House expected a complete ceasefire by April 30th, the 100th day of Donald Trump's term. So, Putin contributed to making the results or the outcome of Donald Trump's first 100 days a negative one, since governance is always evaluated after 100 days. So it was an opportunity to say, yes, I promised 24 hours, but then there were difficulties. But in 100 days, I was able to resolve the conflict. This is what Vladimir Putin dismissed with a wave of his hand. He established a 3-day ceasefire. After that, it will resume. So, please share this video conference with me. What is happening? The Kremlin also rejected other proposals from the United States of America, but very interesting proposals that the Kremlin rejected again. This includes, for example, the return of the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, Zaporozhye, and even the withdrawal of certain troops. The Kremlin rejected it. So, the United States is ready to recognize. The United States had proposed that they were ready to recognize Crimea. They even recognized Crimea as Russian territory. They were ready to lift certain sanctions. They are ready. Not they were ready, but they are ready to lift certain sanctions. But on the condition that Putin backs down on the rest. But Putin says no, he doesn't want to. If they want, they just have to maintain their sanctions. He doesn't want to. His will must be fulfilled. So, it was necessary to listen, hear, understand and discuss with Russia since Putin's public warning in his 2007 speech at the Munich Security Conference about security in Europe. The Kremlin reminds America that it was necessary to listen, to hear, understand, and discuss with Russia about Russia's concerns in the speech that Putin has been giving since 2007. The gloomy one, he's a resentful person, you know? What he said since 2007, he doesn't go back on it. And those who didn't listen, that's their problem. But he says we must refer to that. That is the only solution. But since people didn't listen to that, it's over. And here he speaks, the Kremlin speaks about security in Europe. That means that all of Europe might be threatened, you know? We need to refer back to that speech at the Munich conference to see what he had said. In 2007, I was still a student, and I was much more focused on my studies. So, he continues, he says, but the contempt, the logic of confrontation, the aggressive expansion of NATO to Russia's borders, and the organization of the Maidan coup in 2014, followed by the civil war in Ukraine from that date, created the conditions for imposing security by military force for Russia, which was refused through diplomacy for very, very many years. So, Russia is ready for all forms to avoid the humiliation of the West, having lost its war against it. But the essence has minimum non-negotiable basis: the privilege of the victor. So Russia is ready, but Russia holds its privilege as the victor. Russia would like its privilege to be respected. But will this privilege, these conditions of Russia, be accepted? Question mark. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that was the international news headline. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. I will be back shortly with more news. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.